Welcome to the deep dive. We are so glad you're here with us today because we are tackling a theme that, well, it pretty much universally resonates.
Oh, definitely. It's a big one.
It really is. It's this idea that if you change your thinking, you fundamentally change your life.
Right. And if you're anything like us, you have probably encountered a mountain of material on this exact topic.
No, absolutely. I mean, you might have read a dozen articles, listened to audiobooks, or just scrolled through endless social media threads about mindset, personal growth.
Self-improvement, all of that.
Yeah, it's a massive billion-dollar industry. But the stack of sources we are analyzing for you today comes with a truly unexpected twist.
Which is what makes this so fun to talk about.
Exactly, because we are not dissecting a dense psychological journal today or even a best-selling philosophy book. Today's source material is actually a set of instructional guidelines.
Right.
And they are designed to teach this exact concept of positive mindset and personal transformation, but they are written to be taught using the simplest, most foundational language possible.
We're talking absolute basics.
Yes, specifically, these are guidelines for A1 to A2 beginner-level English learners.
It is a genuinely brilliant angle to take on this subject. I mean, when we survey the modern self-help landscape or, professional development courses, there is this overwhelming tendency to overcomplicate things.
Oh, we love to overcomplicate things.
We really do. We tend to wrap very basic human truths in heavy layers of academic jargon, complex theories.
Branded methodologies, right.
Exactly. But our goal today is to unpack these incredibly basic truths found in these beginner guidelines. We want to explore why deliberately paring down our vocabulary might actually be the ultimate overlooked key to changing how our minds work.
It's so fascinating.
By looking at how these instructional materials strip away all those modern buzzwords just to teach positive thinking to an absolute beginner, we actually uncover the raw, powerful core of how human habits function.
And that contrast is what makes this so compelling, because we often operate under the assumption that we need, I don't know, a master class in behavioral psychology just to get ourselves out of a rut.
Right. We think the solution has to be as complicated as the problem feels.
Yes. But these guidelines suggest an entirely different approach. So let's start right at the foundation. The materials begin by defining the core vocabulary, and it is strikingly direct.
I love this part.
They define mindset simply as the way you think about things.
That's it.
That is the entire definition. There is no discussion of neural pathways or paradigm shifts or subconscious programming. It's just the way you think about things.
And a thought.
The text defines a thought merely as an idea in your mind.
What stands out to me there is how that simplicity immediately removes the intimidation factor.
Oh, for sure.
When you define a thought merely as an idea in your mind, you demystify the entire process of mental health and self-improvement. It takes this highly abstract, sometimes overwhelming concept of our internal monologue.
Which can be so loud sometimes.
Exactly. And it turns it into something tangible and ordinary. From there, the text creates a very clear binary division for the learner.
Right, the good and the bad.
Yeah. Positive is defined as good thinking and seeing good things. Negative is defined as thinking about bad things.
I have to admit, though, when I first read that, I wondered if it was a bit too reductive for an adult audience.
How do you mean?
Well, as adults, we are so used to analyzing the gray areas, Is boiling it down to just good thinking and bad thinking actually helpful, or does it miss the nuance of our daily struggles?
That is a very fair question.
No.
And honestly, it's a reaction most of us have when confronted with this level of simplicity. We want the nuance.
Right.
But from an operational standpoint, it is incredibly effective because we often get trapped trying to psychoanalyze our own negative thoughts.
Oh, completely.
We sit there wondering where a specific insecurity stems from. Maybe we're trying to trace it back to a childhood event or a complex social dynamic.
We turn into our own therapists.
Exactly. And while that deep work definitely has its place, on a day-to-day operational level, we sometimes just need to identify the immediate nature of the thought to stop a downward spiral.
Just to hit the brakes.
Yes. You just ask yourself, is this current idea in my mind about a bad thing or a good thing? Forcing that binary categorization interrupts the overthinking process. It allows you to make an immediate choice about what to do next.
That makes a lot of sense. It stops the spiral. And the text doesn't just leave these as abstract definitions floating in the ether either. It connects them directly to our physical reality, which I found totally fascinating.
The physical toll, yes.
Right. The guidelines point out that negative thoughts, specifically using examples like telling yourself, I cannot do this, or this is too hard, They don't just stay in your head.
They do not.
The material explicitly states that these negative thoughts make people feel tired and sad.
And if we connect that to the broader biological picture, that physical toll is a crucial reality that we routinely gloss over in our daily lives.
I really do.
We tend to treat mental fatigue as something entirely separate from physical fatigue. Like, if we are physically tired, we think we need sleep. If we are mentally tired, we just try to push through it with more caffeine.
Guilty as charged.
Right. But these beginner guidelines accurately capture the biological response. When you are caught in a looping thought pattern of, I cannot do this, your brain is interpreting that as a threat.
Like actual physical danger.
Exactly. It's triggering subtle stress responses. It's releasing cortisol, increasing your heart rate, and that literally drains your body's energy reserves.
Wow.
You are making yourself physically tired and emotionally sad through the mechanism of that thought.
So acknowledging that direct connection that bad thoughts drain your physical batteries is a vital step in realizing why it is so important to change them.
It ceases to be just about trying to be a cheerful person.
Yeah.
It becomes about preserving the energy you need to actually get through your day.
Now, to keep the instruction from feeling too heavy or clinical, the authors of the text weave in this wonderful, relatable humor.
The humor is great.
It really is. They instruct the teachers to use lighthearted examples to explain these concepts, acknowledging that our brains can be incredibly tricky.
Yeah, they really can be.
The guidelines suggest using phrases like, my brain sometimes says funny things, or a line that I think we can all deeply relate to, my brain likes cookies more than exercise.
I love that one.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's a funny phrase, but it does something very important. It normalizes the struggle. It tells the reader, and it tells you listening right now, that having a brain that sometimes actively works against your long-term goals is not a deep moral failing.
Right.
It's just a funny, universal quirk of being a human being.
It's actually profound empathy disguised as a very simple joke. By stating, my brain likes cookies more than exercise, you are executing a really sophisticated mental maneuver.
How so?
You are separating your core identity from your passing thoughts and impulses. You're observing your brain's preferences almost like a bystander, without judging yourself as a fundamental failure for having that preference.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and that is actually a highly advanced psychological technique known as cognitive diffusion.
Wait, cognitive diffusion, just for those who might not be familiar with the clinical term, you mean the act of separating ourselves from our thoughts so we can observe them objectively rather than being controlled by them?
Exactly. Cognitive diffusion is a core concept in behavioral therapies. It is the understanding that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts.
Okay, I see.
If you fuse with the thought, you say, I am lazy because I want cookies.
Yeah.
If you diffuse from it, you say, I notice that my brain is currently requesting cookies.
It completely removes the shame.
It does. And what is so striking here is that this text teaches that advanced clinical concept through a sentence that a child could easily grasp.
It strips away all the pretense. And that actually brings us to a rule in the text that acts as the perfect antidote to our modern habit of overcomplicating our goals.
A rule of simplicity.
Yes. The guidelines actually lay out strict rules for how to talk about change. The rule of simplicity dictates that to truly grasp and apply mindset changes, the teacher and the learner must actively avoid big words.
They are banned.
Literally. The text explicitly warns against using words like perspective, transformation, psychological, and philosophy.
Which raises a really important question for all of us. Why do we naturally default to those complex words when we talk about our own lives?
Because it sounds impressive.
Well, yes, but why do we love the jargon so much? Often, it functions as a psychological defense mechanism. Think about it.
Okay.
If I label my current problem as a deep-seated psychological barrier to transformational growth, it sounds incredibly complex and weighty.
Very serious.
Very serious. And that complexity gives me a wonderful, socially acceptable excuse for not solving it today.
Oh, wow.
Right? It implies that I need a specialist, or a week-long retreat, or at the very least, a new best-selling book to even begin addressing it.
That is so true.
But if I am forced by these rules to drop the academic vocabulary and just say, I am thinking about bad things and it makes me sad, I can no longer hide behind the complexity.
The problem becomes immediate.
Exactly. And the responsibility to take a simple action becomes clear.
That resonates so much. I think about times I've tried to build a new habit, like, say, a morning workout routine.
Yeah.
I can easily spend 3 weeks researching the optimal physiological load and...
Oh, absolutely. Hypertrophy optimization protocol.
Yes. Instead of just putting on my shoes and trying to do 10 push-ups, the jargon becomes a shield against actually doing the work.
It really does.
And the sources give a fascinating example of good versus bad framing to illustrate this exact barrier. They label the phrase, "I will attempt another effort," as bad.
It sounds like a corporate press release.
Or a robot. Instead, they champion the simple phrase, "I try again," as good. In another example saying, "My cognitive perspective has shifted positively," is marked as bad, whereas "my thinking is more positive" is the good preferred version.
Let's really look at why that language shift matters so much for you, the listener. When you force yourself to use daily conversational words like think, try, learn, change, step back, you instantly remove the pressure of performance.
Yeah, attempting another effort sounds exhausting.
It implies a grand formal undertaking. It implies a scenario where you can definitively fail. Trying again, on the other hand, is just what humans do every single day. We try to open a jar, we try to fix a leaky faucet, we try to be patient.
It's just life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When the guidelines force the language down to these foundational words, they make the concept of improving, which the text defines simply as to become better, feel entirely achievable. It brings the goal down from the mountaintop and puts it right in your living room.
It is incredibly grounding, but it does raise the question of implementation.
Right. How do we actually do this?
Exactly. It's one thing to know we should use simpler words, but how does the text suggest we actually build a habit out of this? Because we all know that just telling yourself to do it rarely works for very long.
Very true.
Well, the material starts by defining the mechanics. Change is defined as to make something different, and habit is described simply as something you do many times.
I appreciate that so much. A habit isn't framed as a magical lifestyle design or a hack, it's just an action repeated.
And to show how that repetition works, the text walks the learner through a very specific real-world case study of transformation. They use the highly relatable scenario of trying to learn a new language.
Which is perfect for these A1 to A2 English learners.
Exactly. So the starting point, the old thought, is stated as, "I cannot learn English." What is crucial here is what the new thought becomes. It does not jump to an unrealistic extreme.
The new thought is not, I am a master of English.
Right. Or English is effortlessly easy for me. It completely avoids that trap of forcing a fake emotion.
Yes, it avoids toxic positivity. Let's define that briefly. Toxic positivity is the assumption that despite whatever pain or difficult situation you are facing, you should only maintain a positive, cheerful mindset.
Which is impossible.
It is. It suppresses genuine struggle and forces a facade, which is ultimately exhausting and counterproductive. The text sidesteps this entirely. Instead of a wildly unrealistic positive affirmation, the new thought becomes, I can learn English step by step, or even more simply, I can try.
I can try. It's just 3 words, but the leverage those 3 words have on your psychology is immense.
Absolutely immense.
If you apply that to whatever challenge you are facing right now, maybe it's a massive project at work that feels overwhelming or a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, instead of looking at it and thinking, I cannot do this, which drains your energy, you just shift it to, I can try.
It doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees action.
Exactly. It guarantees action.
However, the sources are also very careful about managing expectations around that action, which is vital for long-term success.
Yeah.
They stress repeatedly that changing your thinking does not happen fast.
It takes time.
It takes practice. It's just like learning a language or an instrument.
Yeah.
And to facilitate that practice, the guidelines introduce a concept they call emotional safety.
The emotional safety rules outlined in the text are arguably the most important part of the entire document.
I would agree with that.
The instructions dictate that there must be no judgment, no pressure, encouragement of progress, and an acceptance of mistakes. The text literally instructs the speaker or the teacher to use phrases like, that is normal, and everyone learns slowly.
Think about how rare that kind of environment is in our modern, hyper-competitive world.
It's almost non-existent.
Right. Whether in our careers or our personal ambitions, we often expect instant mastery from ourselves. We tolerate 0 mistakes. But these guidelines recognize a fundamental truth about neuroplasticity and habit change. If you are going to change a deeply ingrained habit of mind, you require a safe environment to fail.
You have to be allowed to mess up.
Exactly. Acknowledging that changing thinking takes time and that everyone learns slowly is about giving yourself the grace required to actually stick with the process.
Yeah.
If you harshly judge yourself every time you have a negative thought, you are just compounding the negativity. You are creating a stress response about your stress response.
Which is exhausting.
But if you operate with emotional safety, you simply notice the old thought without judgment, say, that is normal, and gently replace it with, I can try.
And the payoff for giving yourself that grace and taking the pressure off is outlined very clearly in the text. The sources list the direct, observable benefits of making this small mental shift.
That's a great list.
It is. Positive thinking helps people feel stronger. It helps them try again when they fail. It helps them learn new things, and it helps them stay motivated.
It creates a self-sustaining feedback loop.
Exactly. You replace the thought that makes you feel tired and sad with a thought that makes you feel a little bit stronger. That strength gives you the energy to learn the new thing, which provides a small win, which in turn keeps you motivated to keep trying.
It is the compound interest of small mental actions. It's not about one massive transformation. It's about hundreds of tiny, simple choices. Which brings us to how the text operationalizes this theory for the learner to use every single day.
The text is very focused on what it calls a small step. And to use their definition, a small step is simply a little action to start something.
A little action.
Right, it's not a giant leap. It's not a total overhaul of your daily routine that will leave you exhausted by Wednesday. It's just a little action.
This is where we want to challenge you, the listener, to bring this philosophy into your own reality. The guidelines don't just leave it at the theoretical level. They recommend 3 exact, highly achievable daily practices to begin building these new habits of mind.
And they are so achievable. Here are the 3 specific daily habits recommended in the sources. The first one, saying one positive sentence every morning.
Just one.
Just one. Not writing a 5-page gratitude journal entry, just saying one single sentence. The second habit, writing down one good thing every day. Again, an incredibly low barrier to entry.
Anyone can do that.
And the third, simply saying aloud the phrase, I am learning.
Let's look at the mechanics of why that second habit, writing down one good thing, actually works. It's not just about feeling warm and fuzzy.
Right, there's a real mechanism there.
When you mandate that you must find one good thing to write down, you are actively shifting your brain's reticular activating system.
The filter.
Yes, you're giving your brain a filter, telling it to scan your environment for evidence of the positive. Over time, this trains your brain to notice opportunities and positive interactions that you previously would have ignored because you were busy scanning for threats.
That is so powerful.
It is. And that third phrase you mentioned, I am learning, is incredibly potent.
Oh, I love that phrase.
Imagine you make a mistake at work, or you mishandle a situation with a friend. Your brain's default negative thought might be, I am terrible at this, or I am a failure.
Very common.
Intercepting that thought with the simple phrase, I am learning, completely neutralizes the shame. It frames your current struggle not as a permanent, unchangeable character flaw, but as a temporary state on the inevitable path to improvement.
It gives you permission to be a work in progress. So, thinking about your own life right now, we want to ask you directly, which of these small steps might you try today?
It's a great question.
Could you find a piece of paper and write down just one good thing before you go to bed tonight? Or maybe tomorrow morning when you are brushing your teeth, you just look in the mirror and say one positive sentence.
Even if it is just, I can try.
Exactly. Remember the core mantra that these beginner texts are trying to impart. Small thinking change, big life change.
It's a profound equation that defies our usual logic. The size of the initial change does not need to match the size of the desired result.
That's a great way to put it.
A tiny, almost imperceptible shift in your daily vocabulary alters your daily actions. Those altered actions, repeated over months and years, will radically alter your life's destination.
It really can be that straightforward. To wrap this all up, what we have learned from analyzing these A1, A2 English instructional guidelines is that building a resilient, powerful mindset does not require a degree in philosophy.
It really doesn't.
It does not require a vocabulary full of modern buzzwords, a complicated productivity system, or a massive, exhausting overhaul of your entire personality.
Which is such a relief.
It's a huge relief. It is simply about shifting away from the energy-draining I cannot to the incredibly empowering simple phrase, I can try. It is about using basic daily words to describe your goals and allowing yourself the emotional safety and grace to practice slowly, accepting mistakes as a normal part of the process.
And as we close out this deep dive, here's a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Let's hear it.
We have seen how stripping away complex, expert language makes it vastly easier to understand and change how we feel and how we act. If dropping complicated words makes psychological transformation so much easier, consider what other areas of your life are currently trapped behind a wall of overly complicated language.
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about your long-term career goals, your romantic relationships, or even your personal creative projects. Are you overcomplicating how you talk about them as a subconscious way to avoid taking action?
That's a tough question to ask yourself.
It is. What if the solution to your biggest, most overwhelming problem is not a complex strategy, but actually just a three-word sentence you have been overthinking?